Welcome back to another Physicist review. Back in the July of 2020, I went and played through the entire Thief franchise for the first time in my life. And needlessly to say, that has left me with a thirst for more stealthy, sneaky protagonists in my video games. So, this time we're reviewing Dishonored from 2012. Dishonored is a stealth action immersive sim type of game developed by Arcane Studios, one of the last bastions in the AAA gaming industry that still produces good quality single player games. Their catalog of games consists of some immersive sim classics such as Arx Fatalis, Dark Messiah of Might and Magic, and Prey 2017. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the review. Let's start with the premise. The game takes place on an alternate Earth around our equivalent of the early to mid 1800s, where the Empire, which is practically the British Empire from the time period with all of its colonies and everything, is suffering from a serious plague outbreak. At the beginning of the game, our character Corvo Attano, who is the royal bodyguard of the Empress, was sent away in search for a cure but is returning back empty-handed. Just as he's presenting his findings to the Empress, assassins show up. While Corvo does his best to defend, he is no match for the assassins with magical powers, and soon the Empress is murdered and her daughter Emily is abducted.
Get away from her!
Corvo is then framed for the murder of the Empress by the Spymaster and the Overseer in what appears to be a coup. Corvo is sent to prison, but after 6 months, the loyalists to the throne break him out and get him to their hideout. During his first night at the hideout, Corvo is visited by a mysterious humanoid known as the Outsider. He bestows Corvo with his magical mark, thus giving him supernatural abilities similar to the assassins. It is then up to the player in the coming missions whether to murder everyone in their path on a quest for vengeance or seek other solutions to serve alternate non-lethal types of justice to their enemies. That's right, you can totally play and complete this game without killing a single person if that's what you want. Before going deeper into how the gameplay works, let's briefly mention what the performance of the game is like. Well, to simply put, this game is pretty well optimized, and since it's 8 years old at this point, any modern laptop or PC since 2012 will be able to run it smoothly at 60 FPS with no problems whatsoever. I can wager that even a decent PC or laptop from circa 2007 and 2008 will be able to run this game at 30 to 40 FPS at 720p resolution. So no worries, this game will run on pretty much anything. Okay, now on to gameplay. Dishonored's gameplay is what I would describe as spiritual sequel to the original old school stealth games Thief 1 and 2. The player is set loose on a non-linear pseudo-sandbox mission where the end goal is to usually eliminate a target, but how they accomplish it is completely up to them. The missions have loads of areas to explore to find equipment, upgrade tokens, money, health and mana elixirs. They have completely optional side quests as well, which can slightly alter how the later levels flow with different characters. Here's a light spoiler example from the first real mission. Your target is the High Overseer of the Abbey, the red-coated guy who betrayed you in the intro. The Overseers are the Hammerite stand-ins from the Thief games. They fight witchcraft and heresy of the Outsider. Before you reach the compound, the target is located and you need to get past the patrols and security measures on the streets. When exploring the side streets for alternative passages and power upgrades, you come across a blind old lady named Granny Rags. She seems demented and is being harassed by street thugs. If you decide to help her out, she rewards you with a magic power upgrade token. She then promises to give you another one if you go and poison the street gang's plague elixir supplies. You can then go to a nearby ethically corrupt scientist's home to steal plague rat intestines. Then infiltrate the gang hideout in the distillery, do some stabby, poison the elixirs, and go back for your upgrade points. And all of this was a completely optional side quest you could have chosen to ignore. For the main mission, you infiltrate the Overseer's compound and get close to your target. Turns out the Overseer is planning to poison a captain of the guard for being non-corruptible. You can choose to switch the glasses to poison the Overseer, Or you can go the non-lethal route and put everyone to sleep, tie the Overseer to a chair, and use a special Heretics brand on his face to make him an outcast forever. And these were only just a couple of options at your disposal. You can get as creative as you wish with what the game allows you to do. I would like to emphasize that not all non-lethal alternatives are quote-unquote good choices. There's a particular one later in the game where you infiltrate a masquerade party to take down a noblewoman. One of the participants in the party recognizes you and asks you to incapacitate the target and deliver her to him, and he promises you that he will take good care of her and never let her out of his house. So your options are to either stick a knife into the target or let her be taken captive against her will with an obsessive stalker dude who will do who knows what to her. I'm sorry, but that's not really a quote-unquote good choice in my opinion. I'd rather just do the old-fashioned assassination thing. I would say that there are three main ways of playing Dishonored. First one is to be stealthy and sneaky all the time like a ghost, unseen. Second is to be aggressively offensive and make any and all effort to take out enemies with style and spectacle. The third way of playing is a mix of both. Use stealth to thin out the enemy numbers, then switch to offense either when caught sneaking or enemy numbers are sufficiently lowered. For a first playthrough, I suggest trying to do the third option, as most people tend to play a game only once, and this would allow you to experience all of what the game has to offer you without making multiple playthroughs. Speaking of first playthroughs, if you own the Game of the Year edition on Steam, which comes with all of the DLCs, there is one more included called Voidwalker's Arsenal. This is all the pre-order bonus crap that came with the game back in the day, and this DLC raises your passive bonus charm slots by +4, straight up. Normally you need to buy some in-game upgrades to get the extra slots, so this DLC completely breaks the game progression. I suggest disabling these through Steam for a first playthrough and then enable them for a second playthrough. When it comes to equipment, Corva has access to a sword for sneaky stabbing and melee fights. For range combat he has a silent mini crossbow that can shoot bolts, sleeping darts, and incendiary bolts. There is also a powerful but loud single-shot pistol which can later be upgraded to shoot multiple shots. As for his gadgets, he has access to razor wire trip mines for ambushing enemies, and good old-fashioned frag grenades. And finally, he is gifted the Heart by the Outsider. It can locate upgrade runes and give unique lore about characters and levels you visit. It is heavily implied that the Heart belongs to the Empress herself with the same voice actor and all. The supernatural abilities is where the game gets pretty creative and allows for personal build customization in a playthrough. Corva can use Blink to teleport across medium distances, useful for both combat and traversal. He has Dark Vision, which gives him X-Ray for super easy stealth, but hey, I prefer super easy stealth over annoying stealth. There's a Bend Time for slowing and then one upgraded Totally Stopping Time for very unique interactions if you get creative. Wind Blast is essentially Force Push from Star Wars. And finally, Devouring Swarm allows you to spawn a pack of rats which attack people. You find upgrade runes to purchase new supernatural powers, find whalebone charms to add passive minor buffs, and burgle money and valuables in a level to buy character and equipment upgrades at the Resistance HQ. The game has a unique, almost cartoony, overly stylized look that works pretty well and is probably why the graphics aged so gracefully 9 years down the line. The world design, however, is very reminiscent of Half-Life 2 in a lot of areas. This is probably due to the fact that Viktor Antonov was the designer for both games and some Half-Life 2 must have seeped into Dishonored. Dishonored's world kind of draws from steampunk, but instead of steam, everything in the game revolves around using whale oil as a power source. There is a massive whale hunting and processing industry which keeps the Empire running. The machinery that you come across all depend on whale oil to function properly. Without going into spoilers, here are the locales you'll be visiting in the 8 or so levels the main campaign offers. The Overseer's Compound, a brothel, a giant suspended bridge, a rich noblewoman's masquerade party, And, oh, wait, hold up a minute, look at that moon! That moon is massive! Maybe Victor needs to go outside and take a look at the moon every now and then. I could say that Dishonored fails the moon test, but since it's set in an alternate Earth, I think it kinda gets away with it. Still though, they must be getting some really massive tidal waves due to that moon, since gravitational pull works inversely proportional to the square of the distance between the two planets. Anyway, the remaining locales are the Royal Palace, which is now a fortress, the city's abandoned flooded district where the plague victims are now dumped, and a massively tall lighthouse structure in the middle of the sea. I personally love the world and the atmosphere this game presents. It's one of the primary things that if a game gets right, it probably manages to hook me in, and Dishonored manages that. Before getting into the spoiler-filled story section, here are the contents of the 3 main DLCs for the game. And it's not like you get to choose to buy these, Steam only sells the Game of the Year edition with these included. DLC 1 is a series of challenge maps disconnected from the main story. There's a randomly generated stealth assassination mission similar to the Masquerade Party level, a burglary mission as an homage to the original Thief, a combat challenge with increasingly difficult enemy waves, there are aiming-based time trials, there's a pretty weird one with time stopping when breaking the glass where you need to be as fast as possible to set up killing moves inside the room before the time unfreezes. There are speed and navigation based challenges, and finally a drop assassination challenge where the ending really got me. DLC 2 and 3 are part of the main story where you play as the assassin leader Daud who murdered the Empress in the prologue. These 2 DLCs tell the events of what happened just as Corvus escaped from prison. Daud has slightly different abilities than Corvo. His blink stops time when held, allowing for more strategic use during combat. Instead of spawning a rat swarm, he can spawn an assassin helper. Master. And instead of using force push, he uses force pull. The story DLCs are very good and they should be played. The challenge DLCs are more of a mixed bag. Some of them are pretty good, like the randomly generated assassination mission or the combat wave defense one, but the rest are meh, up to personal preference if you want to play them. So nice. Can't see anything because the glasses are fogged now, but you know, it's pretty good. The game has a morality system called Chaos, determined by how much people you kill or opt to spare. This only affects the ending slides you get at the very end of the game, and some minor stuff like how some characters talk to you, and whether side characters live or die based on your choices. For this review, I made a high chaos playthrough because the combat systems of the game are really fun to use. But the overall structure and flow of the levels don't change too much for a non-lethal stealthy playthrough. Spoilers from here on out. You have been warned. Achtung! Spoiler von hier an! It is revealed that an Admiral Havelock and a Lord Pendleton is responsible for breaking Corvo out of prison, and now they intend to take down the Lord Regent, the ex-spy master, and his allies, rescue Emily, and restore her on the throne. It is heavily implied by the game that the Empress and Corvo were lovers, and Emily is actually Corvo's daughter, which gives me, as the player, a better motivation for all the revenging and stabby-stabbing I'm about to perform.
Corvo, if you won't marry my mother, would you marry me?
Them alone.
After taking out the High Overseer and rescuing a Resistance member, Overseer Martin, in the first mission, Lord Pendleton sends you to kill his 2 identical twin brothers who have political power over the Parliament and are also keeping Emily locked up in the Golden Cat brothel. We take down the Pendleton twins and rescue Emily. Next up, Havelock sends you to kidnap the morally corrupt natural philosopher Anton Sokolov, who is responsible for the invention of all the technical marvels, and plus he's considered to be an amazing painter. He's rumored to have painted a portrait of the ex-spy master's secret mistress, and Havelock interrogates him to spill the beans on her identity. The mistress turns out to be a Lady Boyle, but since there are 3 Lady Boyle sisters currently, and Sokolov did not see her face while painting, it's up to Corvo to find the right one. You infiltrate the masquerade ball, find the proper Lady Boyle, and take her out. At this point, the ex-spy master is getting pretty nervous as his allies and supporters are being taken out left and right by a masked assassin. For his final mission, Havelock sends Corvo after the ex-spy master, who has fortified the royal palace. Corvo goes in and takes out the ex-spy master, returns back to the Resistance HQ for a celebration party, and then we learn that Martin has been appointed as the new High Overseer. But oh no! Havelock, Martin and Pendleton betrays Corvo by forcing Samuel the fisherman to poison Corvo's drink. However, Samuel, being the only smart character in the game so far, assumes that his head will be on the chopping block next. Thus, he only gives half of the poison to Corvo so he can survive. He later puts Corvo's body on a boat and floats it to the flooded district where the assassin faction from the intro is residing. The assassins captured Corvo and are planning on ransoming him to Havelock, who has now taken control at this point. But Corvo escapes captivity and takes out their leader Dowd and makes his way back to the Resistance HQ. At this point, Havelock has pretty much everyone executed and was banking on his fame for rescuing Emily and having captured Corvo for assassination of the Empress in order to take power. Corvo makes his way to the lighthouse where Havelock, Martin and Pendleton have all turned onto each other in order to be the ones to control Emily. Corvo takes out Martin and Pendleton and finally goes to the top of the lighthouse where Havelock is doing a last Hail Mary by holding Emily at gunpoint. Corvo rescues Emily and we get this pretty disappointing ending sequence. And yes, it's also pretty disappointing if you're a goody two-shoes as well. By the way, it's also possible to not save Emily and still get an even worse ending. Can we also take a moment to appreciate the amount of ways you can eliminate Havelock to rescue Emily? But we're not done yet, there's still the DLC story to talk about. Now we're playing as Dowd, the supernatural assassin who has also been gifted the mark by the Outsider. After assassinating the Empress, Dowd has been having second thoughts and is losing his grip. The Outsider visits Dowd in his dreams and tells him that he's messed things up pretty big time, but he can still make up for his bad deeds by finding quote-unquote Delilah. With only one word to go on, he soon learns from his second-in-command, Billy Lurk, that a ship named Delilah is used by a whale processing plant that belongs to a certain Rothwild who runs the place with his butcher gang. We then learn from either interrogating Rothwild or siding with a double agent lady by blowing up the factory that the ship used to belong to a nobleman named Barrister Timsh. Timsh named the ship Delilah after the witch Delilah, who sort of mind-controlled him to get all of his money. Depending on who you interrogate and help, you get different information about Delilah, but to sum it up, she used to be a servant girl in Dunwall Palace, about the same age as the Empress, and they used to be playmates as kids. When she grew up, Sokolov took Delilah as a painter apprentice and she became sort of famous. Shortly after that, the Outsider visited Delilah and gave her his mark. She then formed a covenant of witches and took over the Brigmore Manor, and she's now up to something involving the late Empress. I like the fact that Billy Lurk here gives you sass if you choose to blow up the factory. It sort of reinforces that Dowd used to be a sneaky assassin and blowing up stuff and killing everyone is out of his character. In the next mission, Rothwild's niece hires you to assassinate his uncle as she thinks he's too far gone and she wants to inherit the family's assets. This turns out to be a clever move on the niece's part, as it's revealed when you get the will that Rothwild was planning on giving everything he owned to Delilah. The niece then tells you in exchange that Delilah's hideout is in the Brigmore Manor up the river outside the city. Dowd returns to his hideout in the flooded district and finds it to be under siege by overseers. Some of his men are captured and he's informed that an assassin traitor is in their ranks. He rescues the captured men and takes care of the remaining overseers. The traitor is revealed to be Billy Lurk. She came to the conclusion that Dowd was no longer fit to be an assassin, and his recent violent streak was the proof she needed to side with Delilah in order to overthrow Dowd and replace him as the leader of the assassins. Dowd and Billy have a pretty cool duel.
I knew it would come.
but in the end, Billy loses. In order to get to the Brigmore Manor, Dowd needs a ship and a captain. The only reliable captain he knows is the leader of the gang Dead Eels, Lizzie Stride. However, she is currently rotting in a cell in Coldridge Prison. The security of the prison is increased after Corvo's escape, and overseer music devices are placed which block out supernatural abilities. You can choose to infiltrate the prison dressed as an overseer, as the staff requested one after Delilah's captured witches messed up a bunch of people during an interrogation. After rescuing Lizzie, she informs you that her gang betrayed her and she needs to get back in charge of them again if they want to sail up the manor with their ship. The following mission takes place in the abandoned shopping mall district to take out the new leader of the Dead Eels to place Lizzie as the leader again. After that, you run a couple of errands to fix the ship and sail up the river to the Brigmore Manor. Once at the manor, you navigate the witch's supernatural abilities and traps to get to Delilah. And I quite like the witches as a faction for the pagan stand-ins from the Thief games. Turns out that Delilah plans to steal the body of Emily using her portraits and supernatural magic, then take control of the Empire and rule over everything. I find it sort of funny that even with all these supernatural powers and her artistic merit, the best end goal she can come up with is to rule over a dysfunctional monarchy overflowing with rat plague. I would have painted a brand new world or something and tried to make that happen. Anyhow, Dowd gets inside her painting, they fight it out for a while.
You can't do this!
But, you know Dowd, he finally wins and stops her plans. After all is said and done, you get an epilogue section where Corvo comes and does the stabby to Dowd. Pretty satisfactory way of ending things in my opinion. Dishonored is one of the best stealth action games I've played, and I can easily recommend it to anyone who got even remotely interested with the concept or the world the game takes place in. The game has multiple difficulty settings for players of all backgrounds to be able to enjoy. I personally played it on hard difficulty for this review and found that once you get enough powers, the game still becomes a bit too easy, even with deliberately getting into combat all the time. But that's not a big problem. One thing I say the game is lacking is a new game plus mode for when you finish the campaigns. It would be really fun to go back to the start of the game from zero with all of your fully upgraded late game powers and see the new things you can come up with in the earlier levels of the game. Fortunately, there are mods on PC which you can use to remedy this lack of feature. I'll leave links in the description for the downloads. Hopefully you enjoyed my review of Dishonored. If you did, please leave a like and comment down below. And maybe subscribe if you wish to see more content from me in the future. Anyway, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one. Roll the credits!